The Helionis Galactic Academy gleamed like a crystal fortress among the stars, its spires of iridescent alloy and quantum glass reaching toward the double suns of the Arxis system. To most species in the Galactic Alliance, it represented the pinnacle of civilized education, a place where the finest minds from 1,000 worlds converged to learn the secrets of the universe. To Alex Cade, it looked like a prison. He stood at the entrance of the grand atrium, 17 years old with earth-brown hair and eyes that had seen too much for their age. The gravity felt wrong here, too light, making his movements appear awkward and barely contained. The air was over-filtered, lacking the microbiome diversity he'd grown accustomed to. Everything felt sterile, controlled, and utterly alien. "Identification and clearance. Please," chirped the hovering security drone, its sensory array flickering with cautious yellow lights as it scanned him. Alex held up his palm, revealing the temporary bio-tattoo that served as his credentials. Alex Cade, transfer student, Xenothreat Studies, advanced placement. The drone's lights pulsed rapidly, turning an alarming shade of orange. Human, Earthborn, biosafety protocols engaging. Please proceed to decontamination. Alex's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. This was the third decontamination he'd been through since arriving at the station. Apparently, being human meant being treated like a walking pathogen. A slender, silver-skinned being with 4 graceful arms approached. "I am Administrative Officer Talus. You are the Earth Transfer." Their voice contained the slightest hesitation, not quite disgust, but close. "Yes," Alex replied simply. "Most unusual," Talus continued, guiding him toward a gleaming corridor. "We rarely accept students from Class 5 Deathworlds. Your admission required special consideration." Alex nodded. Special consideration was bureaucratic speech for someone powerful pulled strings. He didn't know who had arranged his transfer, only that it wasn't optional. One day, he'd been training at the Earth Survival Corps. The next, he was told to pack for interstellar education. "Your background is interesting." Talus was reviewing his file on a holographic display. Top percentile in adaptive reasoning, environmental analysis, threat assessment, below average in cultural integration. They paused. Psychological profile indicates high resilience and concerning levels of combat readiness for one so young. Alex remained silent. There was no good response to that. "Your dormitory will be specially modified to accommodate your physiological requirements. Higher gravity, appropriate atmospheric composition, reinforced furnishings." Talus eyed him, as if he might snap the furniture in half at any moment. "And you'll be housed alone, for obvious reasons." "Biosafety protocols," Alex said flatly. "Indeed." Talus handed him a slim metallic band. "Your restricted access bracelet. It monitors your vital signs and location at all times. Should your biochemistry indicate aggression or stress beyond acceptable parameters, appropriate measures will be taken." "I understand. Your first class begins in 30 minutes. Xenothreat Studies with Professor Duck 7. For the first time, Talus showed something resembling emotion. Pride. "Our artificial intelligence professor is the galaxy's foremost expert on dangerous species. You'll find the lectures illuminating." Alex doubted that, but he nodded politely as he was led to his solitary quarters. The room was indeed modified. Heavier gravity that still felt slightly off. Air with the proper oxygen mix but lacking Earth's complexity, and furnishings that seemed designed to withstand significant force. It was a cage built for a monster, dressed up as accommodation. He had just enough time to stow his few belongings before heading to class. The corridors were filled with students of dozens of species, elegant Vrasi, with their pearl-like skin and elaborate headdresses denoting social status, amorphous Gellans who flowed along in containment suits, insectoid Thrix, clicking and buzzing in their hive speech. They all gave him a wide berth, conversations falling silent as he passed. The classroom was a magnificent amphitheater, with desks arranged in concentric circles, facing a central podium. Alex noted the strategic position of security drones at each exit. As he entered, the hushed conversations died instantly.
Is that a human?
From Earth, an actual Deathworlder? Thought they'd be bigger. Heard they can regrow limbs. Breathe poison.
Eat almost anything.
Alex kept his face impassive as he located his assigned seat, isolated in the back row, with empty seats on either side. The security bracelet felt heavy on his wrist as he sat down, painfully aware of the stares. A tall, elegant Vrasi male approached, his pearl-white skin shimmering with status markings that indicated high birth. He was surrounded by a group of similarly distinguished students, all wearing expressions of fascinated disdain. "So," the Vrasi said, voice musical and dripping with condescension, "you're the human specimen. I am Varric Dren, heir to the 7th house of Vrasi Prime." He gestured to the empty seats around Alex. "I see they've given you appropriate spacing." Alex met his gaze steadily. "Biosafety protocols." Varric's mouth curled into what might have been a smile on a human face. "Indeed. Though I wonder if it's for your protection or ours." His entourage tittered with laughter. "After all, you're so fragile looking for a Deathworlder." Before Alex could respond, a sharp voice cut through the tension. "Showing off your family crest again, Varric? Compensating for something?" The newcomer was unlike any being Alex had seen before. She appeared largely humanoid, but with sections of her skin seamlessly integrated with metallic and synthetic components. One arm was entirely mechanical, gleaming with intricate circuitry. Her eyes were vivid purple with faintly glowing irises, and her hair was a cascade of silver strands that seemed to move with purpose. Varric's expression soured. "Lyra Zen, I should have known you'd be attracted to the newest oddity. Broken things do tend to find each other." The cybernetic woman rolled her luminous eyes. "Creative as always. Varric, did your status VI write that for you? Or did you manage it all on your own?" She turned to Alex, giving him an appraising look that contained curiosity without the usual fear or disgust.
"Lyra Zen, hybrid specialist in xenobiology. You must be the human transfer everyone's talking about."
"Alex Cade," he replied, surprised by the directness of her approach.
"Don't mind the Vrasi peacock," she said, nodding toward Varric. "His species evolved in a perfectly balanced ecosystem with no natural predators. They think that makes them superior, when really it just means they've never had to adapt to anything difficult."
Varric's pearl-like skin flushed with an iridescent blue. Anger, Alex guessed. "You'll regret that remark, hybrid."
"Add it to my tab," Lyra Zen replied breezily, sliding into a seat next to Alex, the only student to willingly breach his isolation zone. Before the confrontation could escalate, the classroom lights dimmed, and a holographic presence materialized at the podium. Professor DUX-7 appeared as a constantly shifting matrix of light, sometimes resembling various species, sometimes pure geometric abstraction. The AI's voice resonated with perfect clarity. "Welcome to Advanced Xenothreat Studies. I am Professor DUX-7, your guide through the galaxy's most dangerous life forms." The AI coalesced briefly into a form resembling an ancient human sage before shifting again. "Today, we begin our most fascinating module, Class 5 Deathworld Inhabitants." A massive holographic display appeared above the podium, showing a rugged, brutal landscape of dense forests, active volcanoes, and turbulent oceans. Alex recognized it immediately. Earth. "Class 5 Deathworlds," the professor continued. "Our planet so inherently hostile to life that evolution takes extraordinary paths. Predator-prey relationships become extraordinarily complex,
Environmental pressures create species capable of surviving conditions that would be lethal to most sentient beings in the Alliance. The display shifted to show various Earth predators: lions, great white sharks, Komodo dragons, each depicted in moments of hunting or feeding. The class murmured with a mixture of fascination and revulsion. But most intriguing are the apex species that develop intelligence while retaining their predatory adaptations. DX7 continued. The most well-known example in our galaxy. The display changed to show a human being. It was a standard anatomical diagram, but subtly altered to emphasize certain features. Teeth displayed as sharper, muscles rendered to appear more threatening, eyes given a predatory gleam. Homo sapiens, the dominant species of Earth. Alex's face remained carefully neutral, though he noticed Lyra Zen glancing at him with heightened interest. Humans are among the most paradoxical species in the Alliance. DX7 continued. Physically, they appear unimpressive compared to many sentient species. However, their evolutionary path as pursuit predators has given them extraordinary capabilities. The display highlighted various human attributes. Endurance beyond most known species. Humans evolved to pursue prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. Unprecedented tissue regeneration. Wounds that would be fatal to most species can be survived. Tolerance for toxins and environmental extremes that would kill most sentient beings. And most remarkably, psychological adaptations that make them both extraordinarily cooperative and capable of sustained aggression when threatened. Alex watched as his entire species was dissected like specimens in a jar. Around him, students were taking notes, occasionally glancing at him with new wariness. Before humans achieved spaceflight, the professor continued, they nearly destroyed their own planet multiple times through warfare. Their capacity for violence is matched only by their remarkable ability to justify it through complex moral frameworks. The display shifted to historical images of human conflicts, world wars, nuclear tests, street violence. This combination of physical resilience and aggressive potential has led the Alliance Security Council to classify humans as restricted integration status. While humans are members of the Alliance, certain protocols must be observed. Alex's security bracelet seemed to grow heavier on his wrist. Which brings us to our most fascinating topic: Deathworlders who can pass as civilized. The display changed to show a human in formal Alliance attire, smiling pleasantly. Then the image flickered to show the same human with exaggerated predatory features, eyes gleaming, teeth bared, stance aggressive. The danger, students, is not merely physical but cultural. Deathworlders like humans can appear to embrace civilized values while harboring instincts and capabilities evolved for one purpose: survival at any cost. A ripple of unease spread through the classroom. Several students shifted to look at Alex more openly now. Varric raised his hand. Professor, is it true that humans have been known to resort to cannibalism when resources are scarce? Alex felt a surge of anger, but kept his face expressionless. The professor paused. There are documented instances throughout human history. Yes, though it is important to note that this behavior is considered taboo in most human cultures. But the capacity is there, Varric pressed, casting a meaningful glance at Alex. The potential to view other sentient beings as food. An oversimplification, DUX7 responded. However, humans do possess remarkable adaptability in crisis situations. Their behavioral constraints can shift dramatically under survival pressures. Another student raised a tentacle. Is it safe to have them in populated areas, given their unpredictability? Alliance protocols include monitoring and containment measures, the professor answered. Human representatives undergo extensive screening and behavioral modification. Alex's jaw tightened. Behavioral modification, a euphemism for the psychological conditioning all human diplomats and travelers underwent before being permitted off-world. What about their aggressive tendencies? Another student asked. Are they controllable long-term? A complex question. Humans have demonstrated capacity for cultural evolution away from violence, yet retain the neurological architecture for it. Perhaps, DUX-7 paused, its holographic form flickering slightly. Perhaps we have an opportunity for direct insight. Student Cade, would you care to comment on these characterizations of your species? Every eye in the room turned to Alex. The security drones at the exits oriented toward him subtly. His bracelet gave a soft, warning pulse, detecting the spike in his heart rate. Alex stood slowly, aware that any sudden movement might be misinterpreted. With respect, Professor, your presentation contains several inaccuracies and overgeneralizations. A murmur ran through the classroom. Challenging a professor, an AI professor with perfect recall, was unheard of. Elaborate, please, DUX-7 said, its tone neutral but interested. Humans evolved as persistence hunters, yes. But our primary evolutionary advantage wasn't aggression. It was cooperation and complex problem-solving. Our societies developed around mutual support, not just competition. Alex kept his voice steady, educational. As for our capacity for violence, all intelligent species have it. The difference is that humans acknowledge it, rather than pretending we've evolved beyond it. Varek scoffed loudly. Typical Deathworlder justification. Your species has more wars in its history than most Alliance members combined. Alex turned to face him directly. And your species had the luxury of evolving on a world with abundant resources and no significant threats. Easy to be peaceful when you've never had to fight for survival. The Vrasi's skin flushed deep blue again. Are you suggesting primitive survival justifies barbarism? I'm suggesting, Alex replied evenly, that judging evolutionary adaptations as moral failings demonstrates a profound ignorance of xenobiology. A tense silence fell over the classroom. Lyra Zen was grinning openly now, clearly enjoying the confrontation. Professor DUX-7's holographic form shifted, taking on a more neutral configuration. An interesting perspective, Student Cade, while perhaps delivered more directly than is customary in academic discourse, your points have merit. The AI addressed the class again. This illustrates an important principle in xenobiology. Observation is not free from cultural bias. Even AIs like myself must constantly re-evaluate our frameworks. The professor returned to the lecture. But the atmosphere had changed. Some students looked at Alex with new interest, others with heightened suspicion. Varek's expression had hardened into clear hostility. As the class ended, Alex gathered his materials, aware of the stares following him. Lyra Zen fell into step beside him as they exited. That, she said with undisguised admiration, was the most entertainment I've had in a lecture all term. The look on Varek's face, priceless. I shouldn't have engaged, Alex muttered. Drawing attention isn't smart. Maybe not smart, but definitely necessary. Her mechanical arm whirred softly as she gestured. This place is drowning in prejudice disguised as academic objectivity. Someone needed to call it out. Alex gave her a sidelong glance. You don't seem bothered by walking next to a dangerous Deathworlder. Lyra Zen laughed, a surprisingly musical sound. Please, I'm a cybernetic hybrid. Half my body was replaced after a ship crash. According to traditional Vrasi like Varek, I'm barely a person anymore. She tapped her mechanical arm. Once you've been classified as other, you start to question all the classifications. As they walked, Alex noted the way other students moved aside, giving them a wide berth. Why are you talking to me? You know it won't help your social standing. Social standing? She rolled her luminous eyes. I'm the daughter of a disgraced scientist and a shipyard mechanic. I'm here on academic merit, not bloodlines. Besides, she gave him an appraising look. I find actual predators far less dangerous than those who've never had their status challenged. Before Alex could respond, an alert chimed from his comm unit. He checked it and frowned. I have to report to psychological assessment. Lyra Zen's expression darkened. Already. They usually wait at least a week before subjecting transfers to that particular torture. Probably my outburst in class. That wasn't an outburst. That was a rational argument. She shook her head. Be careful with the psych AI. It's programmed with all the same biases as the rest of this place. Alex nodded, already turning toward the assessment wing. Thanks for the warning. Find me in the biotechnology lab later, she called after him. I have questions about Earth that won't make you want to punch someone. For the first time since arriving at Helionis, Alex felt the ghost of a smile tug at his lips. The psychological assessment chamber was a stark white room with a single chair facing a holographic interface. As Alex entered, the door sealed behind him with a pressurized hiss that struck him as unnecessarily dramatic. Alexander Cade, human, Earthborn. The assessment AI manifested as a featureless humanoid figure composed of shifting blue light. I am Psych 9, responsible for monitoring the psychological welfare and stability of all Helionis students. Alex sat in the chair, which immediately adjusted to his physiology. Is this standard procedure for all transfers? Standard procedure with adaptive protocols for Category Delta species. The AI replied smoothly. Your species classification requires enhanced monitoring. Of course it did. Alex kept his expression neutral as scanning beams swept over him, reading everything from his pulse to his microscopic pupil dilations. I will ask a series of questions. Please respond honestly. Deception will be detected and noted in your permanent record. The AI's voice was clinically detached. First scenario. You observe a physically weaker being threatened by a stronger one. Your response? Depends on the context, Alex answered. Is it a random act of aggression, or is there history I'm unaware of? Are there established authorities I should alert? Is immediate intervention necessary to prevent harm? The AI paused, seeming to process his response. Most Category Delta subjects answer with immediate intervention strategies. Your analytical approach is noted. A series of data points flashed across the holographic display too quickly for Alex to read. Revised scenario. The weaker being is a member of your social group. The aggressor is an authority figure from another group. Your response? Alex recognized the trap in the question. They were testing his deference to authority versus his loyalty instincts. I would attempt to de-escalate first through communication. If that failed and the intervention was necessary, I'd aim for minimum force to ensure safety. Interesting! More data points flickered. Final variant. The weaker being is unknown to you. Intervention carries significant personal risk. Your response? Again, context matters. Is the threat immediate and severe? Are there alternatives to direct intervention? What are the ethics of non-intervention in this specific situation? The AI's form flickered slightly. You consistently avoid direct answers in favor of contextual analysis. This pattern is unusual for your species profile. Alex met the AI's featureless gaze. Maybe your species profile needs updating. Perhaps. The holographic figure shifted configuration. Let us move to emotional response mapping. I will display a series of images. Your reactions will be monitored. The air before Alex filled with rapid-fire images. Predators hunting prey. Beings in distress. Scenes of conflict and cooperation from various worlds. He kept his breathing steady, aware that every physiological response was being recorded and analyzed. When the images stopped, Psych 9 remained silent for several moments, processing. Your control is remarkable, the AI finally said. Perhaps too remarkable. Your suppression patterns indicate extensive training beyond normal developmental parameters. Alex said nothing. There was nothing to say. Tell me about your training on Earth, Alexander Cade. Standard education curriculum with additional survival emphasis. Earth's environment requires it. Your file indicates participation in a specialized program. The Earth Survival Corps is not standard education. Alex tensed slightly. The program details are classified by Earth authorities. Helianis Academy has security clearance for all student backgrounds. The AI countered. Your evasion suggests discomfort with your training history. Why? Because my training history involves things that would confirm every prejudice you have about humans. Alex thought, but didn't say. Instead, he replied carefully. The training was intensive and not always pleasant to recall. The AI's form flickered again, reconfiguring into a more authoritative stance. Records indicate you were part of Project Endurance, a controversial human initiative to develop enhanced survival capabilities in adolescence. Your cohort experienced simulated extinction-level events, predator encounters, and extended isolation in extreme environments. These experiences would be classified as traumatic by Alliance psychological standards. Alex felt cold anger rising, but kept it contained. Someone had accessed his sealed records. The project prepared us for worst-case scenarios. Earth's history has plenty of those. Indeed. The AI's tone shifted slightly. One final question. Alexander Cade, do you believe your experiences have made you more dangerous than the average human? The question hung in the air between them. Alex knew there was no right answer. Say yes, and confirm their fears. Say no, and be flagged for deception. I believe my experiences have given me tools for survival, he finally answered. Whether those tools make me dangerous depends entirely on the choices I make with them. The AI was silent for a long moment. Assessment complete. Your psychological profile has been updated. The featureless figure leaned slightly forward. You should know, Alexander Cade, that your danger assessment score is the highest recorded at this institution in 200 years. The door hissed open behind him, a clear dismissal. As Alex left, he noticed new security protocols activating on his bracelet. More frequent scans, tighter parameters. The assessment hadn't gone well. He was now officially classified as a threat. The next few days settled into an uneasy routine. Alex attended classes, endured the stares and whispered comments, and spent most of his free time in his quarters studying. His isolation might have been complete if not for Lyra Zen, who seemed determined to include him despite, or perhaps because of, his pariah status. She found him in the library archives, buried in xenobiology texts. There you are. I've been looking everywhere. Don't tell me you're studying on Free Cycle Day? Alex glanced up from the holographic display, trying to correct some misconceptions about Earth biology. The texts here are riddled with errors. Shocking, she replied dryly, sliding into the seat beside him. Her mechanical arm extended, interfacing directly with the library system. Here, let me help. I have priority access to the unfiltered databases. Why are you being nice to me? Alex asked abruptly. Everyone else treats me like I'm carrying a plague. Lyra Zen's luminous eyes met his. 2 reasons. First, I find you interesting. Do you know how rare it is to meet someone genuinely different in this conformist institution? She gestured with her organic hand. And second, I know what it's like to be the subject of everyone's morbid fascination rather than a person. Alex studied her for a moment. Her cybernetic components were clearly advanced, seamlessly integrated with her organic tissue. Your enhancements, they're not standard medical prosthetics. Notice that, did you? There was a hint of wariness in her voice now. Let's just say my father's disgrace involved pushing the boundaries of cybernetic integration beyond what was strictly approved. They look like improvements, not just replacements. Her expression softened slightly. They are. Each component is superior to what I lost, which is exactly why many find them disturbing. The implication that biological perfection can be improved upon offends species like the Vrasi. She tilted her head. Speaking of offensive implications, have you heard about tomorrow's field exercise? Alex shook his head. We're visiting the Holodome. It's a full immersion environment simulator. And guess what environment they're showcasing for the Xenothreat class? Let me guess. Earth? Bingo. Complete with authentic survival challenges and predator encounters. She made air quotes with her mismatched hands. Varric has been bragging about how he'll demonstrate the proper handling of Deathworld conditions. Alex closed the holographic text with a gesture. Wonderful. It might be. Actually. Her eyes gleamed with mischief. Seeing these sheltered academic elites try to handle what you grew up with? Could be educational for everyone. Or it could be another opportunity to reinforce stereotypes about humans. Only if you let it be. She stood, her mechanical components whirring softly. Come on, I'm starving. And the dining hall just got a shipment of actual grown food instead of the usual synthesized paste. Alex hesitated. He'd been avoiding the dining hall, tired of being the center of attention. They'll stare whether you're there or not, Lyra Zhen said, reading his reluctance. Might as well get some decent food while they do. With a resigned nod, Alex followed her. The dining hall was a vast, elegant space with food stations representing cuisines from across the Alliance. As they entered, the usual wave of whispers and stares followed. Lyra Zhen ignored them completely, heading for a station marked biological substrates. The synthesis stations are garbage, she explained, selecting items from the display. All nutrition, no pleasure. This stuff is actually grown or raised. Much better. Alex noted with surprise that the station included several Earth foods, albeit strange, modified versions that didn't look quite right. He selected what appeared to be an apple, though its skin had an unusual purple tinge. They had just found a table when Varric and his entourage entered. The Vrasi noble spotted them immediately, his pearl-like skin shimmering with what Alex had come to recognize as smug satisfaction. Preparing for tomorrow, Deathworlder, Varric called across the hall. I've been studying Earth's predatory ecology extensively. Fascinating how primitive it all is. Tooth and claw, rather than civilized competition. Alex bit into the strange apple, ignoring him. Undeterred, Varric approached their table. The Holodome experience should be illuminating for everyone. A chance to see a human in their natural habitat. My natural habitat includes advanced technology and complex social structures, Alex replied evenly. But don't let facts interfere with your preconceptions. Varric's skin rippled with iridescent patterns. Amusement. Possibly. Always so defensive. A very human trait, I'm told. He glanced at Lyra Zhen. Though I'm surprised at you, hybrid. Aligning yourself with a documented danger case? Even for you, that's extreme. Lyra Zhen's mechanical eye gleamed brightly. Documented danger case? Where did you hear that particular classification? Varric? Student psychological profiles are supposed to be confidential. A flicker of concern crossed the Vrasi's face before he composed himself. Information flows to those with the right connections. Illegally accessing private records flows to those with the right connections. You mean, she countered. I wonder what the Academic Integrity Board would think about that. Varric's entourage shifted uncomfortably, but the Vrasi noble maintained his composure. Merely looking out for the safety of my fellow students. After all, he fixed Alex with a pointed stare. Some among us aren't what they appear to be. After he departed, Alex turned to Lyra Zhen. What did he mean about a documented danger case? She hesitated. I've heard rumors. After your psychological assessment, your security classification was elevated. It's not public, but Varric has access to information he shouldn't. Alex finished grimly. Great. Don't let it bother you. Half the students here have family connections they use to access restricted information. It's how the social hierarchy maintains itself. She pushed her plate aside. But you should be careful tomorrow. The Holodome isn't just education. It's entertainment. And Varric seems determined to make you the main attraction. The holodome stood apart from the main academy buildings, a massive hemispheric structure of opaque material that shifted subtly, like oil on water. As the Xenothreat Studies class approached, Professor Dux7's holographic form flickered into existence before them. Today's immersion experience will focus on Class 5 Deathworld environments, specifically Earth's varied biomes and the survival adaptations they necessitate. The AI professor surveyed the assembled students. This is not merely an observational exercise. You will experience simulated environmental pressures and must respond accordingly. Safety protocols are in place, but discomfort is part of the learning experience. Alex noticed several students looking apprehensive, while others, Varric among them, appeared almost eager. The simulation will include predator encounters, Dux7 continued. While no physical harm will come to you, your neurological responses will be fully engaged. Your reactions will be monitored and evaluated as part of your course assessment. They were led into a preparation chamber where environmental suits were distributed, lightweight bodysuits that would translate the simulation's effects into sensory experiences while providing basic protection. "These look ridiculous," muttered a Gellan student, their amorphous form struggling to conform to the humanoid-shaped suit. "Be grateful," Lyra Zen replied, adjusting her suit to accommodate her cybernetic components. Without them, the neural feedback could trigger actual physiological responses. The sim is that convincing. Alex examined his own suit with skepticism. It seemed flimsy compared to the environment gear he'd trained with on Earth. When he put it on, it adjusted poorly to his physiology, clearly designed with different body proportions in mind. Student Cade," Professor Dux7 approached. "Given your familiarity with the environment we'll be simulating, you are encouraged to observe rather than participate directly." It was a diplomatic way of saying they didn't want him showing up the other students. "I'll participate like everyone else, Professor." The AI's holographic form rippled in what might have been concern. "Very well. But please remember that your experiences may differ significantly from your classmates. What seems routine to you may be quite traumatic for others." As they entered the main chamber of the holodome, Alex was momentarily disoriented. The vast empty space suddenly filled with light, color, and sensation. Within seconds, they were standing in a dense, tropical rainforest. The humidity hit like a wall, the air thick with the sense of vegetation and decay. Insects buzzed, birds called, and unseen creatures rustled in the undergrowth. "Earth's Amazonian biome." Professor Dux7's voice came from everywhere and nowhere. "One of the most biodiverse and challenging environments on the planet. Your first task is simple: find water, shelter, and identify potential food sources." The class split into small groups, each taking a different direction. Alex found himself with Lyra Zen and two nervous-looking Thrick students, who kept their compound eyes fixed on him, as if expecting him to suddenly turn feral. "This is amazing," Lyra Zen said, examining a flowering vine with both her organic and mechanical eyes. "The detail is incredible." Alex nodded, though to him the simulation felt slightly off, too clean, too organized compared to Earth's actual chaotic abundance. "We should head downhill. Water always flows to the lowest point." One of the Thricks clicked nervously. "There could be predators near water sources." "Almost certainly," Alex agreed. "But dying of thirst isn't a better option." As they moved through the forest, Alex found himself automatically scanning their surroundings, identifying plants, noting signs of animal passage. It was second nature, ingrained from his training. The others watched him with a mixture of wariness and fascination. "You've done this before," Lyra Zen observed. "Not in a simulation, I mean, part of basic education on Earth," Alex replied, though they both knew it was more than that. "Here, these leaves collect water. Not much, but enough in an emergency." He demonstrated how to extract moisture from the plant. They continued downhill, eventually finding a small stream. The water looked clean enough in the simulation, though Alex knew that in a real rainforest, it would require purification. Phase 1 complete, announced the professor's voice. Now, demonstrate appropriate shelter construction techniques for this environment. The Thrick students looked completely lost. Their insectoid physiology ill-suited to the humidity and unfamiliar with the materials at hand. Lyra Zen was more adaptable, using her mechanical arm to efficiently gather branches and vines. Alex worked quickly, showing them how to create a simple elevated platform to stay off the ground and a basic roof for rain protection. As he worked, he became aware of shouts from another group nearby. "It's in the trees! It's coming! Carnivore alert! Activate protection protocols!" Alex recognized Varric's voice among the panicked cries. The simulation had introduced its first predator encounter. Lyra Zen caught his eye. "Should we help them?" Before Alex could answer, a massive jaguar burst through the undergrowth, its simulated form perfectly rendered down to the saliva dripping from its fangs. It wasn't heading for Varric's group. However, it was charging directly at them. The Thrick students froze in terror, their exoskeletons clattering audibly. Lyra Zen moved to protect them, her mechanical arm reconfiguring into a defensive position. Alex stepped forward, positioning himself between the charging predator and his group. His mind calculated distances, speeds, vulnerable points, all the training activating at once. The jaguar leapt, in a fluid motion that surprised even himself. Alex sidestepped, used the cat's momentum against it, and executed a perfect defensive maneuver that sent the simulated predator tumbling past them. It wasn't harmed, couldn't be, in the simulation, but it retreated, circling warily now. There was stunned silence from his group. Then, one of the Thricks spoke, mandibles quivering. "How did you do that? It was so fast." "Just training," Alex said, keeping his eyes on the jaguar. "It's sizing us up, deciding if we're worth the effort. We need to appear united and dangerous." He picked up a sturdy branch. "Make noise, look big, move together." They followed his instructions, and the simulated jaguar eventually slunk away into the undergrowth. As it disappeared, Alex became aware that they were being watched. Varric's group had abandoned their own area and now stood at a safe distance, observing. The Vrasi noble's expression was unreadable, but the others looked shocked. "Most illuminating," came Professor Dux7's voice. "Student Cade has demonstrated classical human defense techniques. Note the calculated risk assessment and use of the predator's own momentum." Alex felt uncomfortably like a specimen in a laboratory demonstration. The simulation continued through various Earth environments: Arctic tundra, desert, temperate forest, with escalating challenges. In each scenario, Alex found himself naturally taking the lead, his body responding to the simulated threats before his mind fully processed them. The other students increasingly deferred to him, even Varric's group beginning to watch and imitate his techniques. They were in a simulated savanna environment, dealing with limited water and exposure to the elements. When the first system glitch occurred, the sky flickered, momentarily revealing the holodome's actual ceiling before reasserting the simulation. "Minor technical adjustment," the professor's voice announced. "Please continue the exercise." But minutes later, a more serious disruption occurred. The temperature regulation failed, suddenly plunging the environment from scorching heat to freezing cold. Several students cried out in shock. "Emergency protocols engaging," the professor announced. But Alex detected an unusual modulation in the AI's voice. Concern? "Simulation stability compromised. Attempting to restore parameters." The savanna flickered, replaced briefly by Arctic conditions. Then, by what appeared to be an alien landscape, not from Earth at all. The shifting accelerated, environments blending together in a disorienting kaleidoscope. "System malfunction," DUX-7 announced. "Attempting emergency shutdown." Nothing happened. The environments continued to shift rapidly, and now the sensory feedback from the suits was becoming dangerously intense. A Gellan student collapsed, their containment suits struggling to maintain their amorphous form against the conflicting signals. "Can't process. Too many environments," gasped one of the Thrix. Alex's mind raced. The holodome was malfunctioning, but the emergency systems weren't responding. That suggested deliberate interference rather than random failure. "Professor," he called out, "the neural feedback is too strong. Students are being affected physically." "I am aware," DUX-7 replied, the AI's voice now clearly strained. "Security lockouts have been engaged. I cannot access emergency overrides." Lyrazen moved to Alex's side, her cybernetic eye scanning rapidly. "This isn't random. Someone's hacked the system. The safety protocols have been disabled." Alex looked around at the increasingly distressed students. The Vrasi were particularly affected, their pearl-like skin fluctuating wildly as their bodies tried to adapt to the rapidly changing conditions. Varric himself was on his knees, his elegant features contorted in pain. "The exit doors?" Alex asked. "Sealed by the security lockdown," Lyrazen replied grimly. "Standard procedure when systems are compromised." Alex made a quick decision. "Professor, where's the main control node for the holodome?" "Central pillar, concealed access panel," DUX-7 answered. "But the manual override requires administrative authentication." "Or a direct mechanical interrupt," Lyrazen said, her mechanical arm already reconfiguring. "I can try to interface directly." "Too risky with the feedback loops active," Alex countered. "We need to create a power surge, overload the system." He turned to the disoriented class. "Everyone gather around me! Close formation! Now!" To his surprise, they obeyed immediately, even Varric allowing himself to be helped by others. The authority in Alex's voice had cut through their panic. "Lyra, can your arm generate an electrical discharge?" She nodded. "But not enough to affect the whole system." "It doesn't need to. Just enough to short out this section's sensors." Alex pointed to the nearest wall, where a cluster of almost invisible nodes controlled the local simulation effects. "If we create a blind spot, we can reach the central pillar without the system tracking us." As Lyrazen prepared her arm, Alex addressed the huddled students. "When the section goes dark, move as a group, stay together, head directly for the center of the dome." She fired a precisely calculated electrical pulse at the sensor cluster. The section of simulation around them flickered and died, revealing the holodome's actual structure, a web of projection technology and environmental controls. "Now!" Alex ordered, and the group moved forward in a tight cluster, supporting those who were struggling. They repeated the process, Lyrazen disabling section after section, creating a path toward the central control pillar. Finally, they reached it, an unassuming column that housed the holodome's main systems. "Cover panel is there," DUX-7's voice guided them, now coming only from a small speaker in the pillar itself. "But, as I mentioned, it requires—" Alex didn't wait for the explanation. Using a technique he'd learned for dealing with hardened barriers, he struck the panel at precise stress points. It cracked, then broke away entirely. "That works too," the AI commented dryly. Inside was a complex array of controls. Alex studied them briefly, then looked to Lyrazen. "Can you identify the main power coupling?" Her cybernetic eye scanned the array. "There, the blue crystalline node, but interrupting it directly could damage the whole system permanently." "Better than it damaging the students permanently," Alex replied. He reached for the node. "Wait," said a weak voice. It was Varric, still clearly in distress but forcing himself forward. "That's Academy property. You'll be expelled." Alex met his gaze steadily. "Then I'll be expelled." He grasped the power node and, with a sharp twist, disconnected it from its housing. The entire holodome went dark. Then, emergency lighting activated, bathing everything in a soft blue glow. The environmental suits powered down, ending the harmful feedback. Students collapsed in relief, many removing their suits entirely. Medical drones, finally able to enter now that the lockdown had ended, flew in to attend to those most affected. Professor Duck 7's holographic form reappeared, now stable but diminished in size, running on backup power. Excellent problem-solving, students. Though I must note that the solution was somewhat destructive. The system was compromised, Alex said firmly. Someone deliberately overrode the safety protocols. The AI nodded. Indeed. Security logs indicate unauthorized access approximately 3 minutes before the malfunction began. The source is being traced. Lyrazen helped a shaking Gelen student remove their suit. This wasn't a glitch. It was sabotage. But who would... began one of the Thrix, then stopped, all eyes turning to Alex. He understood immediately. You think I did this? Why would I endanger everyone? Then help fix the problem. To demonstrate your superiority, Varric said, his voice stronger now as he recovered. To show how the dangerous Deathworlder saves the helpless civilized species. That's absurd, Lyrazen snapped. He couldn't have hacked the system. His access is restricted more than anyone's. Varric's eyes narrowed. Perhaps. Or perhaps his restrictive monitoring is precisely why he needed to prove himself. Before the argument could escalate, the dome's main doors opened and a security team entered, led by Administrative Officer Talus. All students will report to medical for evaluation, Talus announced. The incident is under investigation. Their forearm gesture took in the entire class, but their eyes fixed on Alex. Student Cade, you will come with security for immediate questioning. As Alex was led away, he caught Lyrazen's concerned gaze. She mouthed silently, I'll find out who did this. He nodded, but a sinking feeling told him that regardless of who was responsible, he would be the one to bear the consequences. The investigation lasted 3 days. Alex was confined to his quarters, allowed out only for direct questioning. His security bracelet was upgraded to include a full restraint function. One wrong move, and it could immobilize him completely. On the 3rd day, Lyrazen managed to visit him, her cybernetic components giving her access privileges others lacked. They've been searching for evidence that you hacked the system, she said without preamble. But they won't find any because you didn't do it. You found something? Alex asked, careful of the room's monitoring systems. She nodded subtly. Not here. They're listening. She handed him a data tablet. Your assignments from the classes you've missed. All completely legitimate. When he took the tablet, he felt a small data chip pressed into his palm. He palmed it discreetly. Study hard, she said with pointed emphasis. Especially page 17 of the xenobiology text. Fascinating material on adaptive responses. After she left, Alex found a way to shield himself from the room's sensors. A simple technique using the environmental controls to create a small blind spot. In that pocket of privacy, he accessed the chip using his tablet. What he found made his blood run cold. Access logs, communication records, a methodical trail of evidence showing that someone had indeed sabotaged the holodome. But not just anyone. Varric Dren had orchestrated the entire incident, working through intermediaries to cover his tracks. But that wasn't the worst of it. As Alex dug deeper into the files Lyrazen had obtained, he found something far more disturbing. Varric had accessed his personal records, not just the Academy files, but the sealed Earth records, Project Endurance, the survival training, everything. And now, Varric was preparing to use that information. A draft of a formal complaint to the Academy Board, accusing Alex of being a weaponized human, a living weapon sent to infiltrate the Alliance's premier educational institution. The evidence was damning, not because it was false, but because it was fundamentally true. Project Endurance had been designed to create the ultimate survivors, humans who could endure anything, adapt to any environment, overcome any threat. The project's more extreme aspects had been classified precisely because they would confirm the Alliance's worst fears about humanity. Alex stared at the data for a long time. Then, methodically, he began to prepare. If Varric wanted to expose him, fine, but he wouldn't go down without a fight. The summons came the next morning, not to the administrative office as he expected, but to the Grand Assembly Hall, the Academy's most formal venue, used only for the most significant occasions. When Alex arrived, escorted by security drones, he found the hall filled with students and faculty. At the front, the Academy Board sat in judgment, 7 members representing the Alliance's most prestigious species. Administrative Officer Talus stood at a podium, 4 arms arranged in a formal position. "Alexander Cade," Talus began, voice amplified throughout the hall. "You have been called before this assembly to address serious allegations regarding your presence at this institution." Alex kept his face expressionless as he was led to a position facing the board. "Varric Dren of Rossi Prime has brought forth evidence suggesting that you represent a security threat to this academy and, potentially, to the Alliance itself." Talus gestured, and Varric stepped forward from the audience. The Vrasi noble looked triumphant, his pearl-like skin gleaming with status markings emphasized for the occasion. "Honorable Board, I regret the necessity of this action, but the safety of our institution must take precedence over individual consideration." He activated a holographic display, which showed portions of Alex's classified Earth records. The human, Alexander Cade, is not merely a student from a Deathworld. He is a product of Project Endurance, a covert human military program designed to create what can only be described as living weapons. A murmur ran through the assembly. Alex saw fear, disgust, and fascination on various alien faces. The project subjected children to extreme conditions, simulated predator encounters, and psychological stress tests that would be considered torture under Alliance law. Varric's voice carried perfect, practiced outrage. They were trained not merely to survive, but to kill, to infiltrate, to endure conditions no civilized being should face. The board members conferred briefly. Then the chairperson, a Gellan of advanced age, addressed Alex directly. "Student Cade, these are serious allegations. What say you in your defense?" Alex took a measured breath. "The records Varric Dren presents are genuine, though obtained illegally." He paused as another murmur went through the crowd. "Yes, I participated in Project Endurance. Yes, the training was extreme by Alliance standards, but its purpose was survival, not aggression." "Survival at any cost," Varric countered, "including violence against other sentient beings. When necessary for defense, yes," Alex acknowledged. "Just as I defended your classmates in the Holodome when the systems were sabotaged." Varric's skin rippled with anger. "A situation you engineered to demonstrate your capabilities." "A situation you engineered. Varric Dren." The new voice came from the back of the hall. Lyra Zen strode forward, her cybernetic components gleaming under the lights. "I have evidence proving that Varric accessed the Holodome controls through intermediaries, disabled the safety protocols, and engineered the entire incident." She transmitted data to the board's displays. Access logs, communication records, and financial transactions. Varric intended to create a situation where Alex would be forced to reveal his training, then use that revelation to have him expelled. The board members examined the data with growing concern. Varric's skin flushed deep blue. "These allegations are absurd," he sputtered. "The hybrid is clearly allied with the Deathworlder. Her evidence cannot be trusted." "The evidence speaks for itself," Lyra Zen replied coldly. "But more importantly, consider the actions themselves. When the Holodome malfunctioned, who protected the class? Who found a solution while others panicked? The very training Varric condemns saved lives, including his own. The chairperson turned to Varric. Is this true? Did you endanger your fellow students merely to expose student Cade? Varric's composure cracked. You don't understand. He doesn't belong here. Humans are predators, savages given the veneer of civilization. His kind will never truly be part of the Alliance. They're too dangerous, too unpredictable. And yet, Alex said quietly, when given the opportunity to harm you during the malfunction, to simply leave you to suffer the consequences of your own sabotage, I chose to help instead. Which of us is the savage, Varric? The hall fell silent. The chairperson spoke after a long moment. This assembly will recess, while the board considers both the allegations against student Cade and the counter-allegations against student Dren. All parties will remain available for further questioning. As the assembly dispersed, Alex found himself surrounded by a small group of students, those who had been in the holodome with him. To his surprise, they weren't afraid. They were curious, even supportive. Is it true? Asked one of the Thrick students. Were you really trained to survive extinction-level events? Alex nodded cautiously. That's remarkable, the Thricks replied. Mandibles clicking in what Alex had learned was admiration. On my world, we rely entirely on collective response to threats. The idea of individual survival capability is fascinating. Others joined in, asking questions about Earth, about human adaptability, about the techniques he'd used in the holodome. It was the first time since arriving at Helianus that Alex had been engaged in genuine conversation, rather than being treated as a specimen or a threat. Lyra Zen appeared at his side, looking pleased. See? You show them something authentic, and suddenly you're a person, not just a category. Thank you, Alex said quietly, for finding the evidence, for speaking up. Don't thank me yet. Her expression grew serious. The board still has to decide what to do with you. Your records are still problematic by Alliance standards. And Varric still has powerful connections, Alex acknowledged. Before she could respond, a new commotion drew their attention. A group of security drones had surrounded Varric, who was arguing vehemently with Administrative Officer Talus. This is outrageous, the Vrasi noble was shouting. Do you know who my family is? You cannot treat me like a common... The evidence is conclusive. Student Dren, Talus replied implacably. You endangered the entire class and attempted to frame another student. The board has authorized immediate disciplinary measures. To everyone's shock, Varric lunged at the administrative officer, a foolish move born of desperation. The security drones immediately restrained him, but not before his wild gesture struck one of Talus's forearms. Assault on an academy official, Talus announced, seeming almost satisfied. This compounds your offenses considerably. Student Dren. As Varric was led away, still protesting, Alex felt no satisfaction. The Vrasi's actions were born of fear and prejudice, the same fear and prejudice that had shaped Alex's own reception at the academy. The assembly reconvened 2 hours later. The hall was even more crowded now, word having spread throughout the academy about the dramatic confrontation. The chairperson addressed the assembly with formal gravity. After reviewing all evidence and conducting further interviews, the board has reached its decisions. Alex stood alone before them, Lyra Zen having been asked to remain in the audience. Regarding student Varric Dren, the board finds him responsible for the holodome sabotage, unauthorized access of classified records, filing false allegations, and assaulting an academy official. He is hereby expelled from Helianus Academy, effective immediately. His family has been notified. A murmur of shock ran through the hall. Expulsion of a high-status Vrasi was virtually unprecedented. Regarding student Alexander Cade, the chairperson paused, and Alex braced himself. The board acknowledges that your background and training are unusual by Alliance standards. However, your actions during the holodome incident demonstrated that this training was used for the protection and benefit of your fellow students, not for harm. Alex felt a flicker of hope. Furthermore, we recognize that cultural and biological differences exist throughout the Alliance. To condemn an individual based solely on their species' evolutionary history or their society's educational methods would contradict our founding principles of diversity and mutual understanding. The chairperson's amorphous form shifted slightly. Therefore, you are cleared of all allegations and authorized to continue your studies at Helianus Academy without restriction. Another murmur, this time of surprise and speculative discussion, rippled through the crowd. Additionally, the chairperson continued, given the evident gaps in our curriculum regarding Earth and human adaptive strategies, the board requests that you consider developing an elective seminar on terrestrial survival techniques to be offered to interested students under faculty supervision. Alex was momentarily speechless. From pariah to instructor in a matter of days, it was the last thing he had expected. I would be honored, he finally managed. Very well. This assembly is concluded. As the crowd dispersed, students approached Alex, some cautiously, others eagerly. Questions flew at him from all sides, no longer fearful, but genuinely curious. Is it true humans can survive without water for 3 days? Can you really regulate your body temperature consciously? Would you teach us that defensive technique you used in the Holodome? In the midst of this unexpected attention, Lyra Zen appeared at his side, grinning broadly. Congratulations, Professor Cade. Quite the turnaround. I'm not sure I'm qualified to teach anyone, Alex admitted. You survived Project Endurance, navigated Alliance prejudice, and managed not to kill Varric despite ample provocation. I'd say you're exceptionally qualified. Her cybernetic eye gleamed with amusement. Besides, these sheltered academic elites could use some practical education. As the crowd around them continued to grow, Professor Duck Seven's holographic form appeared nearby. The AI observed the scene with what almost looked like satisfaction. A most educational outcome, the professor remarked. Perhaps the most valuable lesson of the Xenothreat Studies curriculum. What lesson is that? Alex asked. That danger, like beauty, is largely in the eye of the beholder. The AI's form shifted thoughtfully. Or perhaps that the most dangerous species are not always those with the sharpest claws, but those who never question their own superiority. In the days that followed, Alex found himself in an entirely new position at the academy. His isolation ended as students sought him out, not as a curiosity, but as a genuine source of knowledge. His seminar on terrestrial survival techniques became the most requested elective of the term, with a waiting list that included faculty members. Even his quarters were relocated, no longer segregated under biosafety protocols, but placed in the main residential complex. The security bracelet was removed entirely, replaced with standard student credentials. One evening, as he prepared materials for his seminar, Lyra Zen visited his new quarters, bringing what she claimed was authentic Earth tea. It wasn't, but he appreciated the gesture. So, she said, settling into a chair with fluid grace, her cybernetic components gleaming in the soft light. The infamous Deathworlder is now Helianus Academy's most popular instructor. Quite the story. Alex smiled slightly. Hardly an instructor, just a student sharing what he knows. Don't underplay it. You've changed minds here. Even some of the Vrasi students have started questioning their assumptions about humans. She studied him over her cup. Though I'm curious about something. What's that? In the Holodome, when everything was falling apart, you could have left Varric to suffer. It would have been justified after how he treated you. But you didn't. Her luminous eyes searched his face. Why? Alex considered the question carefully. Because proving him right would have been too easy, he finally said. He expected the Deathworlder to be selfish, aggressive, focused only on survival. Showing mercy was the one thing his worldview couldn't accommodate. Compassion as the ultimate revenge, Lyrazen mused. Elegant. Not revenge, just a different way of being strong. Alex set his cup down. Project Endurance taught us to survive. Yes. But survival alone isn't enough. What matters is what you survive for. She nodded thoughtfully, then asked with sudden directness, Do people love on your Deathworld? The question caught him off guard. What? Love? Connection? Does it exist in a world where everything is trying to kill you? There was genuine curiosity in her voice. And something else. A personal interest that made Alex's pulse quicken slightly. We don't love logically, he said after a moment, but we'll die for it. Her cybernetic eye gleamed brightly as she processed this. Fascinating. The ultimate survival adaptation is being willing to sacrifice survival itself. For the right reasons, Alex agreed. Maybe that's what makes us dangerous. Not that we can survive anything, but that we find things worth not surviving for. Lyrazen set her cup aside and leaned closer. I think I'd like to learn more about these illogical human adaptations. I could add a section to the seminar, he suggested, though he understood perfectly well what she was really saying. She laughed, a sound he'd come to appreciate deeply. Always the teacher now. No, I think this requires more direct research. In another part of the academy, the board was still in session, discussing the implications of recent events. The human has integrated remarkably well, observed one member. Student response to his seminar has been unprecedented. Perhaps we have been too restrictive in our classification of Deathworld species, suggested another. Cultural adaptations may mitigate evolutionary pressures. The chairperson's amorphous form shifted thoughtfully. What concerns me is the larger implication. If this is a typical human adolescent, albeit one with specialized training, what else might Earth be concealing beneath its surface? The question hung in the air, unanswered. Meanwhile, Alex Cade, the Deathworlder who had become a teacher, was learning something himself. That sometimes the most alien environment isn't a hostile planet or a dangerous ecosystem. Sometimes it's a place where you're finally beginning to belong.